has their own respective culture in which societal norms are expected to be followed. However, throughout the world, different cultures have different societal standards and expectations. It is important for us to understand these societal regulations in order to avoid being seen as just an arrogant tourist. An aspect of this would be their nonverbal communication and how it is incorporated into their daily lives. It is important to take into account that South Koreans' nonverbal communication differs from ours in many ways. Resources such as book, etiquette and taboos around the world, a geographical encyclopedia of social and cultural customs, websites, body language in South Korean culture, beginner's guide to South Korean culture and customs, global rise of South Korean grooming, using helping skills with Korean clients, the perspective of South Korean counselors, and would you trust driverless service, foundation of pedestrians' trust and attitude using nonverbal social cues, have allowed me to inform myself on South Korean society and communication, in which I will be discussing in my speech today. Throughout my speech, I will discuss South Koreans' kinesics, self-presentation, and proxemics, and how it is incorporated into their nonverbal communication. First is kinesics in South Korean culture. In book Etiquette and Taboos Around the World, a geographical encyclopedia of social and cultural customs by authors Taylor and Williams, it is described how they have two values they hold dear: Confucianism and Kibun. Confucianism is the aspect of honor and loyalty being incorporated into their actions, while Kibun is the balance of peace and harmony. An example of this is how they hold their elders in high regard when greeting them, or just in society overall, and how hugging is mostly reserved for couples, or how even table manner etiquette is seen commonly in South Korea. In article Body Language in Korean Culture, it is described how body language is a major part of South Korean culture, such as when emphasizing their emotions, they tend to make sure it is understood, such as when agreeing with someone, they would use 2 thumbs up instead of 1, or when denying something, they would make sure their feelings are communicated and crossing their arms, emphasizing a no. Or when passing and receiving things, they do it with both hands as a sign of respect. In article A Beginner's Guide to South Korean Culture and Customs, it is described how when bowing to elders, it is much more lower in comparison when you are greeting your friends or family. The person of lower status will bow first. Following, the person of higher status will initiate the handshake. Next off is self-presentation in South Korea. Beauty standards are very highly important to South Korean culture, such as in article The Global Rise of South Korean Grooming, it is described how porcelain skin and slender faces are the epitome of beauty and represent youth and grace. Beauty products are used to emphasize this youthful look. In the same article, grooming practices that are seen as controversial for men are widely encouraged in South Korea, such as plastic surgery being normalized, or even men using makeup, which represents a sign of self-respect. An article using helping skills with Korean clients, the perspective of Korean counselors, it is described how they take values passed on from previous generations and ancestors and incorporate it into their daily lives, such as self-control and restraint, in order to avoid bringing shame to their family. An example would be dressing modestly when visiting traditional places, or avoiding parties and focusing on your studies in order to avoid being seen as someone who does not care about their education, or even just respecting their parents and elders by going out of their way and making sure they get home safely, or just helping them out in errands. Lastly, I will be discussing proxemics in South Korean culture. Article Would You Trust Driverless Service? The foundation of pedestrians' trust and attitude using nonverbal social cues. It is described how differing generations have different practices when traveling. Younger generations will tend to travel in groups, while older generations tend to travel alone. In article A Beginner's Guide to South Korean Culture and Customs, it is described how space is highly encouraged, and an arm's width should be kept at all times. In the book Etiquette and Taboos Around the World, a geographical encyclopedia of social and cultural customs by authors Taylor and Williams, it is described how in a funeral, the body is placed into a white tent and a black curtain is hung. This is done with intent, as colors have significance in South Korea. In this case, white and black represent death. In conclusion, this was my speech about South Koreans' kinesics, self-presentation, and proxemics. I hope to have shared their social customs and norms that may differ from ours. As I once said, each culture has their own respective standards and expectations, so it is important for us to fully understand them in order to respect each culture. I am glad to have shared my findings with you today, and I hope that one day you will make use of it if you plan to travel to South Korea. Thank you for your time.